Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to tie like just a regular old bass popper. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can use lots of different things. Bass aren't that sensitive. It just needs to make noise and look edible. Um, so you can use like round foam. You can use block foam. You can use this foam here. Um, Pretty much whatever you want. You can also spin deer hair. I'm not doing that today. It's a pain in the butt and it takes a lot of time and it makes a huge friggin' mess. Foam is really easy. It lasts long. It casts well. I've been using these a lot since I've been here in Michigan and caught lots of fish on them. They like the dark ones. It looks like frogs. But any color. So I'm going to show you how to do one. If you don't have this foam, you can do it with this foam. You can do it with just about anything as long as it floats. So first, you want to tie in your tail, and you don't have to get super fancy with this. We've tied in our hook or our weed guard here, and so now that the super glue is cured, we can put in whatever we want to make it out of. So you can just pick whatever colors you want. Doesn't really matter. I've got all sorts of different stuff over here, all sorts of things. So I'm just going to show you how to do traditional olive frog because I've got all that stuff right here in front of me, and it's easily to grab. And at the end of the day, what doesn't want to eat a frog? So we'll pull off 2 pieces of marabou, and we'll kind of like get the crap fibers off of there and like move them all forward. And then what we want to do is we want to tie this into the back of the fly, but we want to tie it in not like you do your traditional woolly bugger. You can if you want, but I like to make it look like it has legs, and it just gives a little bit more oomph. So we're going to tie them in there at a 45-degree angle out the back, right? About as long as the hook shank. Measure it out, pinch it, take our thread, and we're tying it in there at an angle, 2 soft wraps, and then a nice tight one there, right? Leave it there. Don't touch it. Okay? Then we'll grab that second one, right? Ooh, no. And yank it out of here. Like that. Doesn't have to be fancy, right? It's not the same size. Yeah, give or take. And we'll tie that one in on the other side at the opposite 45-degree angle to make it look like it has legs. Now, again, 2 softer wraps, 1 nice tight one to hold it in place. Then we don't need these. These are in the way. So we're going to clip those out. Okay? Get that out of there. Wrap these in. Those little tag ends, just going to give them a couple of wraps. Hold these feathers in the back in place so they don't spin around on you. Well, that one kind of did. But that's okay. You're going to fix it. Remember, the fish don't care. So then we'll part the feathers here in the back by doing a little cross weave between them. We'll use our hands here and kind of like get them out of the way. And you don't have to do this. I do it because it just pops those legs out to either side. Come back around. And we come up and underneath. Go around this one. And all it does is kind of flay those legs out here. I'll show you. Because this isn't a tail. It's legs. See? And it kind of like whoop, pops them out. There we go. Okay. So those are good. That's done. And then at this point, you're probably going to want some flash because, who doesn't want flash in their bass popper? So, I've got some green stuff here. It's sparkly. Doesn't really matter. Again, when you're making flies for just about any fish, they're not that particular, especially when it comes to like topwater. It's just got to look, sound the same, maybe the right color, but I mean, you know how many trout I've had to eat purple chubbies, it's like, it's just silly. So we're not being super nice about this. We're just kind of tying it in, some flash that goes right down the center out the back. Give it a little flair, right? Okay, and then what we want to do is we want a little bit of contrast in there. So I'm going to tie yellow in because I want some bright contrast, right? And so for this one here, I'm actually going to spin this one on, like palm it over, like you would a hackle, right? Just like you would like your spay flies for out west, anything like that. We'll take the tip, lightly wrap it in. That GSP will cut right through that fiber if you're not careful, right? And again, I'm just going to pull that back, get it out of the way. And then, good trusty bodkin here. And we'll spin this and part the feathers just like we would like an intruder fly or anything like that. And all we're doing is just building a big big fluffy collar for this guy. Right, so bring it up and over. And really, like, this fly takes a little bit. Like, you got lots of pieces, it's big. It's going to take 10 to minutes to half hour. I got some of these bigger streamers and bigger poppers. They'll take 20 minutes to half hour, and I'm pretty quick. And when I'm doing a video, it takes a little bit longer. But, like, don't feel bad if you're not getting through it really quickly. You could take all day and tie one of these. You're going to be throwing on 10 and 15 pound pests. Chances of you losing it are a little bit lower. And once you figure out how to tie it, you can spend a couple of hours and tie 2 or 3, and they'll last you a while. Especially if you dry them out and take care of them. There we go. That should work. What'll wear them out faster is the fish chewing on them, which has happened to the few that I have tied already. Been using them for the last week or so, and I fish almost every day, and I need a couple more because they're getting just a little chewed on. I got teeth marks on it and stuff. So there, that's flayed out the way we wanted. I put a couple of thread wraps back on top of those fibers to kind of get them to swoop back a little bit. And then once that gets wet, it'll all kind of like, and it just adds some color that kind of splays out on the front of those legs. And at this point here, more flash, you know, because why not? So, we got some olivey crystal flash here, so we're going to tie like 4 or 5 strands of that in. Well, what about the rubber legs, Nate? We'll get to the rubber legs. Oh no, it broke. So, when that happens, we just do this. I have another one rigged up here. And we'll just tie this thread back in, because I hate it when that happens. But it happens. So, because nothing's ever perfect, and the fish don't care. So, there we go. I'm just going to wrap that in there. That should be good. There. Okay. Now, yeah, we change the color of the thread. Doesn't matter. Okay. So, crystal flash. Back to what we're doing. See? Little accident there. A lot of times you'll lose your cool when that happens. It's not a big deal. That's why I have 2 bobbins rigged up. Alright. So, tie that in. This one we are going to V on there and split so that it goes like that on either side, and I'll kind of turn the fly there so you kind of see there's a crystal flash there. It doesn't have to be a lot, you know, just a little bit to catch the light as it's sitting on the surface. Less is more, like hairspray and cologne. So at that point, we probably are going to want some rubber legs, you know, because you can't have a bass fly without rubber legs. And there's rubber legs somewhere over here. Here we go, right here. See? There we go. So we'll put 5 or 6 of them in here. So I take 3 strands of the rubber legs. Yep. Get off there. There we go. Yep. Okay. And again, I'm going to tie these in. I'm going to bring the thread forward just a little bit here so I have some room. I'm going to put them on as a V. Make sure they're even. Kind of keep them parted. Bring them up to the top. Hold them down in that V on either side. So they kind of fall to either side of the fly. And then when I make my thread wraps back, they should start put. If they don't, that's okay, you know, because the fish won't care. They're still going to eat it for you. And that's the great thing about tying your own flies. You know, fly fishing tends to make things out to be like they have to be perfect. Like, I'm a fly fishing guide. I've watched thousands and thousands of hours of casts. It's rarely ever perfect. Rarely. It's very rare. And rarely is the fly perfect. It's chewed on, it's beat up, it's missing legs and stuff. They still eat it. So, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to look like the store-bought flies. So now that we got our rubber legs in, at this point here, you typically put a little glue on there so they don't slip around. There's nothing. That's the one thing I do hear about rubber legs is they tend to slip and move. So we'll just give it a little dash of that. And then at this point here, probably ready to, like, put your foam and like your dubbing on. So and really to make this simple, I'm going to use just straight olive foam, and we're going to cut like a rectangle, not a big one, okay, so like yay big, yeah, about that big, you know, 1.5 inches or so, maybe 2 inches, okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cut one end of it into like a triangle almost. I'll show you. We're just going to taper that edge, the back end, right? Yeah, make it look like a little body. right? So get skinnier at the butt, fatter at the head. Okay, and at this point here, we're gonna want like some dubbing. So I got some sparkly olive dubbing here. This will work. This will work. I'm just using what's in front of me here. It doesn't have to be pretty. Guarantee you a fish will eat the crap out of this. We're just going to spin just a little bit on to give us a little bit of a base to tie this foam in and kind of cover up those leggy bits that we just tied in. So we'll kind of work it back onto those. There we go. And what this does is instead of trying to tie the foam directly onto the like thread and hook shank, it just gives it something soft to kind of grip. And when you glue it, it also gives it something the glue to soak into to help adhere the foam to it. So we're going to take this piece of foam that we've cut and we're going to put his skinny end over the back of the fly, right? Towards the tail, okay? And we want that, where that little taper starts, to be right in front of our little dubbing loop, because that is where we're going to tie our foam in. So we're going to do one nice light wrap with this and let it like cinch down like that. That's what we want. We want it to like bend over the hook and over that dubbing. And we're going to give it 2 or 3 there. We don't need a lot, and you don't want to do it too tight because you'll cut the foam, right? You don't want that. You don't want to cut the foam, okay? And then at that, you're going to fold this foam back up over itself like that. It pops its head up. Bring your thread forward. And then take some wax, because GSP, you don't have to use wax. GSP doesn't like to stick to dubbing, so we'll put a little wax on there. Grab our whatever color ice dub. You can do whatever color you want. You can do this in fire tiger colors. You can do it purple, pink. Oh, it doesn't matter. Bass don't care. You know, they might be shied away from other colors. Like the other day, I was throwing a fire tiger orangey yellow one, and they were like looking at it, but they wouldn't take it. And then I threw the darker one, and that's the one they wanted. But it just kind of depends on the day. So just having a myriad of colors. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to work this sparkly stuff on here. At this point, if you wanted to tie more legs in, you could. This is a good spot for more legs. The more you tie on, the harder it is to cast. Just remember that. The more stuff that goes into bass and big flies and streamers and things like that, the harder they are to cast. The more wind resistance they have, the heavier they get, the less they're going to do the things that you want them to do. So just keep that in mind when you're starting to like put stuff on hooks. That's why my rule is less is more. You want to be able to cast it. The fish will eat it. Like as long as it looks close, the fish is going to eat it. All right. Okay, so we've worked our dubbing forward. Okay, we're right near the head, and we want to leave a little bit of space around the eyelet of hook because we got to tie this weed guard in. So what we're going to do is we're going to flop the foam back forward, hold it in place with our offhand here, pinch it, and we're going to bring that thread back up and over the foam, nice and soft, and kind of like situated in place. You don't want it to like be crooked. You want it to be straight up and down. And then pull it tight so it creates that little cone. Give it 2 or 3 little tight wraps, not too tight that it cuts the foam. Then what you're going to do is you're going to fold that foam back again, bring the thread forward, okay? You're almost done. And you could leave the fly like this at this point, tie it off after you tie the weed guard in, and it would fish. But there's a couple of things you can do. So then what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to tie this weed guard in. And so what you're going to do is I've tied this in before. We're going to bring it up forward and hold it in place with our offhand like this, up near the eyelet. And then, ooh, that side. We're going to bring our thread over top of it, lightly, kind of wrap it in place, and then give it a good cinch, okay? Cinch that down. Now we want enough space in here that it blocks the weeds, but doesn't block the hook, right? So you need a bit of a gap. Usually what I say for mine is however wide the hook gap is, that's about how wide you need the gap between the hook and the bottom of the weed guard. So about right there, somewhere in there. That should work. And then once we've got it situated, we can give it a couple of big, heavy thread wraps. Now it's going to want to slip out of place. Then you just go in front of it and behind it, just like you're tying in legs and stuff. And then what I like to do is I like to wrap around the weed guard and come down. Wrap around the weed guard and come down and almost put like a half hitch on the top of the weed guard. Do it again. Secure it in place just like you would eyes. All right, a couple of wraps on top of it to like half hitch it into place. And then you should be good. That should be enough because you're going to super glue it and it's going to stiffen up too. And if it feels like it's too bendy, like this is a little bendy, but it should work. You can get stiffer stuff like 80, 100 pound. You can get the stiffer stuff like, but a lot of times you're just trying to get it to block and make it so the fly will hop up over things without the hook sticking. And you don't want it to be too thick that it gets in the way of your hook set. So, boop, 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 boop. We're just gonna whip finish this off. And because it's GSP, I like to do it like two times. And I'm gonna go around the weed guard with a couple of those wraps too, just to really cinch it into place. Clip it off. And then at this point, you're gonna want to put the glue on there. So like I used my bodkin to glue it so I don't make a huge mess. But we'll just kind of dab the glue in and amongst the weed guard and the thread base there. If you can rotate your vise, you can flip it over. If not, you can pop the fly out and do it that way. There we go. Okay, we should let that dry. Usually I'd let it dry before I do the haircut, but we're gonna cut this like that. Boom. And we cut it down pretty thin because we're gonna pop this foam forward, right? And then, bloop. At that point, you can leave it. It'll do what you want it to do. But a lot of the times what I do is I kind of like, I trim the edges here. Just boop. Boop. Just like I'm trimming the edges of, any other body fly. And then pop that back up. And then when you pull that, it's going to go blurp, blurp. And you can also flip this up and it'll go blurp, blurp. It'll still do the same thing. So you can flip it up and down. A lot of times it'll ride just like that. And you're just trying to get it to make noise, and it looks like a frog. You can draw little eyes on there if you want, anything like that. But it'll pop it in the front view there. See? And you get this nice kind of like, without having to use that or have like a fancy cone head popper, you can create the same motion and have the same thing with a relatively quick fly that doesn't cost very much, that gets the same job done. And it does the exact same things as like the fancy lacquered poppers. These kind of foam, it has the same exact effect. It gets just as many fish on it. So there you go. That is how you tie a quick and easy foam bass popper. And that is also how you tie in a weed guard. So there you go. Hopefully that was helpful. We're going to go probably fish this tomorrow. Till next time, anglers.